eyeball. So we've made a spooky eyeball. We're missing the red veining. So to make the red veining, I'm going to zoom in and show you the tool. In the toolbar, here's line. Next to line is select line. You click on select line and then you drag down to scribble tool. So we're going to use the scribble tool, not curve connector, elbow connector. We're going to use scribble tool because this is the one that's going to give us the most natural looking line. So I'm going to put my mouse back over here and zoom out. And now to make the veining on my eyes, it's going to make it look like it's kind of like the eye has some irritation. I'm going to click and drag and I'm going to make some lines. And then I'm going to change the colors of the line to red, and I'm going to make the thickness of the line a little bit more bold. And then I can go back to the scribble tool and keep going. So I'm going to make some scribbles around my eye. So they could be longer or shorter, but this is what's going to give that eye that irritated look. Ooh, I don't like where that one is placed. So I can use the arrow keys or shift with the arrow keys to try and make that fit inside a little bit more. So sometimes those veins might overlap or crisscross. All right. So just add some lines, and then to make the lines have a little bit of weight variety, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press shift and I'm going to click on some of the red lines that I've drawn. I'm going to change the border weight to a thicker line, and then some of them I'll click on and I'll make some of them a thinner line. And now my eye has a little bit more variety and depth. Now I can also take some of these and duplicate them and then change their thickness if I really like the way that some of these lines already look. And I can make them skinny. And so here's my one spooky eyeball. So far, we made the sclera, the iris, the pupil, the highlight, and the red veins. So now we need to group our eyeball all together. So to do this, make sure you're on the select tool, click and drag to select your eyeball. Then you're going to click arrange, group. Once you've grouped your eyeball, now you've got it where you could resize it. So press shift and drag it to make it small. Now you might be looking at it and thinking that some of these lines don't look right anymore now that it's small. You could always go back in and double click on some of those and bring the line weight down if that makes it better for you. But I kind of like the really irritated effect. So now that I have my grouped eyeball, I can duplicate my grouped eyeball. I can rotate my grouped eyeball, and I can even double click and see how there's two binding boxes. Because there's two binding boxes, I'm clicked on the eyeball, but I'm clicked on the iris. So if I want to choose a different iris, I could go in and create a new gradient for a different iris. So maybe I'll use this purple and this yellow. Yeah, I don't like that one. Maybe this one. Okay. So now I have a new iris. It's still a spooky eyeball, but I have a new iris. So now if I want to play with size and space, I can grab this eyeball and put it in front of this other eyeball, and it's showing that one is in front of the other. But maybe this doesn't look so good. I'm going to show you some other things that we can add to our eyeballs to make them a little bit more realistic. When you click on your eyeball, when you click off your eyeball, the toolbar changes. When you're clicked on your eyeball, you should see format options. if you click on format options, you can add a drop shadow. Now, if you don't want to add the drop shadow to the entire shape, you can double click on just the circle and add the drop shadow to just the sclera part of the eye. So if you notice, if I change the distance, notice how there's only a drop shadow for the sclera part of the eye. So there's no drop shadow on the iris, the highlight, the pupil, the veins, any of that. So another thing that you can do, I'll duplicate this so that you can see the difference. You can also add a reflection. So this one already has a drop shadow, but let's add the reflection. The reflection makes a slight mirrored image of everything that was selected. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to double click on just the white sclera part of the eye and then click reflection. So that way I can have a plain eyeball, I can have an eyeball with a drop shadow, and I can have an eyeball with a reflection. So those are three different things that you might want to add. And if you don't like the drop shadow effect on this one, you can also remove the drop shadow effect completely, like that. So now we have a reflection with a drop shadow, and an eyeball. So continuing on with the other things that you need to do for your artwork, you need to choose a background color. So for background colors, you might want to create a new gradient, or you might want to create a custom gradient. For my background, because I want to make it have that spooky vibe, I'm going to try and choose hues that are darker. So maybe this cool blue violet, and it can blend into this yellowish, brownish, mustardy color. And if I don't like this gradient, like I think maybe the yellow part is too intense, I'll change the background gradient. If I go into the gradient, I can add an additional stop, and I can bring that stop lower down and make sure that it's the original color. So that way this gradient is feeling softer and moves it lower down. So here is my pieces. Now I have to remember I want my composition to allude to space. So if I take this eyeball, I can put it behind the other eyeball. I can change the colors of the irises. By double clicking. Even though they are grouped together, I can double click and I can change those gradients. And if this one is very far away, maybe it should be a lot smaller. So we can be playing with the size and the scale. And maybe this one, they can even be so large as to be cutting off of the page. This is going to really enhance the space. So it's time for you to work on your spooky eyeball. If you need any help, let me know, and I'm excited to see what you create today.